Well, hello everybody. This is Jeff Morton. Thank you. I want to tell you that I really like the fact that you guys are checking out my podcast. I don't have the great viewership that I used to have when I did the other podcast, which we did for 2.5 years long. But I do appreciate looking at some of the folks who are chiming in on the recorded version. Those of you who are live, I do have the comments open. You're welcome to make comments during the show, and I'll see them as you post them. We are live on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook at 3 o'clock every Sunday afternoon. Well, I don't want to say every Sunday afternoon because sometimes I'm not able to do this. But I do appreciate you joining us. Now, you can see we've got this breaking news. President Biden drops out of the presidential race. I'm not a fan of President Biden, so I wish him well. He seems to have some cognitive problems, and wish him the best. It's been an interesting 3 years, to say the least. But anyway, he's dropped out of the race, and that's probably the biggest news right now going across pretty much every news channel there is. So anyway, enough said about that. We can go ahead and take that ticker down. Let me tell you about Ignite You. It's called Ignite You 365. Now, in my current position, I do a lot of networking. I'm reaching out in kind of a sales position. And so I was introduced to Ignite You 365, which was started several years ago. 3 times a week, I have an opportunity to meet with a lot of business owners. We have a luncheon on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. The company I work for has paid for me to attend these. And I got to tell you, I'm meeting some pretty amazing business people. And I'm meeting people of every walk of life you can think of. Good. And it's just like a really good networking thing. It's kind of, if some of you are familiar with BNI or some of the other smaller network groups, this one is a lot of fun. And so my guest today, who I'm going to talk to you about a little bit about, that's how I met him over at Ignite You. And as we his name is Pascal, we'll bring him on here in just a minute. During the show, he's going to tell you his background, his story. When he was telling me some of the things that he's gone through, I was like, wow, that's interesting. And then he said to me recently, I'd do your podcast and share my story. And I thought, it's an interesting story. And I think it's something that might encourage a few folks, in particular in the times that we live. So without further ado, I'm going to bring and introduce you to my guest today. His name is Pascal Jean Baptist. He is from Canada. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, this is his very first podcast. He's never done this kind of thing before. He's going to be fine. We're just going to have a conversation. Jean Baptiste, I want to thank you for joining me today on my podcast. Of course, this is going to be recorded. You'll have access to the recording across the spectrum. We'll make sure you have all that information. And just relax, and we're just going to talk about you today. Now, I want to say something about the podcast, folks. I'm interested in talking to people who are actually doing things that make a difference in the community. That's what this podcast is all about. I did a podcast for 2.5 years. I've done a lot of this kind of stuff, but the last podcast that I did, which was audio only, not video, it was more of a faith-based historical account of the biblical stuff, which I'm very interested in, but that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about people. It's about people that are making a difference, people who have a story to tell that might encourage other people. It's about businesses. It's about friendships. It's about relationship. It's about you. And so, Pascal, this show today is about you. We're going to talk about you on Let's Talk About It. So why don't you take a few minutes and just give us a little background about your life, your story, and then we're going to talk about 5 microns.
Sure. Yes. Well, my name is Pascal Jean Baptist, and actually the name is French. And the reason for that is because my family their background is Haitian. So they're from the highland of Haiti. And so that's the background I come from. I don't really speak Creole very much. I can understand it. But yeah, that's my background. I was born in Montreal, Quebec. And I was raised mostly by my mother. And my parents divorced probably when I was around 8 or 9, I think. And so Mom raised us. Dad was, he was there, um, but not very consistently. So, but I had a decent childhood. It was a little bit of struggles at time, of course. There was three of us. There was myself, brother, and sister. I'm the oldest, so I helped out. I helped my mom out. When I worked, I helped her out. I helped her with my siblings, and then so I've always wanted to be always wanted to be in business for myself, and I just didn't know how. So as a young guy, I kept looking for ways to what different things I could do as a business. So I tried different things, and then eventually I landed on starting a mail order catalog business back in Toronto, mid '90s.
I, tell me, I mean, how did that all happen? A mail order business? You were what? How old were you when you started that?
I would say about 20. Let me see, 24. I was
24 years
24 years
old.
old. Yeah.
And this is your only income?
Yeah, that was my only income at the time.
That's
Yeah.
a bold move. Go ahead. I'm curious about this story. Go ahead.
But I didn't have a family yet. I didn't have children or anything.
Right.
So it made it a little bit easier. And things were much easier financially back then. Things were really cheap. Um, so I got into this business. I was looking, like I said, for a way to, uh, and the way I got into mail order business is um, I had an idea for something. And excuse me, I didn't know how I was going to sell it. And so when I was at home at night watching television really late, one of those infomercials came up, and that gave me an idea. I said, "Oh, this is how I'm going to sell it. I'm going to use mail order because how you that's how a lot of things that are not well known. That's how they're sold. These new things, and so that's what led me into researching how to get into that, and that's how I started to develop this business. Along the way, I met somebody who became my mentor. He's a pretty, well-known legend in the direct marketing business. We became friends. We were friends for many, many years. He'd succeeded in that business, you know, a long time ago in the '70s. Actually, he sold his company to Time Inc. for a lot of money back in the early '70s. So he was still doing it, but he was more. It was more of a hobby for him at this point. So he and I stayed friends. He mentored me. He showed me a lot of things. So I learned a lot from him when it comes to business and mail order particularly, but even just in business, he taught me a lot of things. So yeah, we were friends for maybe 20 something years, and he passed away in 2018.
Hmm.
So he was 98 years old at that point. So, but great friend. So yeah, that's how I started the mail order business. Probably at the wrong time, um, just because there was a little company called Amazon coming on the scene. So they just crushed the whole, you know, business. I mean, you saw Sears Roebuck fail. That was the last one. It was a catalog company originally, Sears Roebuck.
Right.
Um, Sharper Image was another one. They failed eventually. Just it's a new world. So everything was becoming e-commerce based, and
Right. And it's
so we
still growing. It's still growing. I mean, it hasn't even got to. We're still on the cutting edge of this e-commerce world, but you're right. Amazon came in, and a lot of companies went bye bye.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
so how did you? What did you do at that point? And how long did you run the mail order business?
Well, I ran it from that time probably up to about 2017, somewhere thereabouts.
So you had a pretty
Until
good run.
yeah, but it was not easy. It was tough. It wasn't always good. It's a tough business because you have to have a lot of winners to make it work. You have to have a very good product that is not easily. found elsewhere. Well, with the internet, that's almost impossible.
Right.
Uh, you know, but before that time, you could get exclusive rights to a lot of merchandise that you can buy from a small manufacturer and get an exclusive right. But after the internet started to become a way for people to buy things, well, you could find everything on the internet. So even these things that were rare, you couldn't easily find before that, you could find them. So what's the point of buying it from you when they can just get it from Amazon or something?
Yeah, at a much right at a better cost because of
Right.
volume.
Also, and faster shipping.
And so anyway, you ended up. What happened after that?
Well, I did that for a while, and I was also going to school. I went to school. I went to a community college and got a computer degree, and I did tech work, as well. And that's what brought me to the United States. And
Hmm.
I was offered a position through Microsoft. It wasn't really directly through Microsoft, but it's there's a they have an internal recruiting agency, and when they hire you, you kind of work through them for
Right.
Microsoft.
You
Um,
so if I understand it right, it was basically you talked about it, Volt, which was a hiring service for Microsoft, but you were
right.
working for Volt, and then eventually you ended up getting the position at Microsoft. Is that how I understand it?
No, no, it was always with Volt.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it was always through that. And then I from there I actually moved on to other things. But that's what brought me here. That's what brought me to the
So how
U.S.
did they bring you to the United States as a because you've been here for well over 20 years now.
Yeah, yeah,
How did you end up? You have dual citizenship, or how's that work?
yeah. I do have dual citizenship now. I do,
Okay.
but at the time, um, it's like a work sort of like permit visa thing,
Right.
and then they could also turn it into I forgot what you call it. Like they can sponsor you.
Right.
They sponsor
Okay.
you to come here to work, and then so that's how I did that. And then I met my wife too, and so um, she was a U.S. citizen at some point,
So
and then so
when did you meet your wife, or when did you get married?
um, yeah, we got married in 2003. Yeah,
Okay.
July of 2003. Yeah.
And you produced a daughter. I think you told me.
Yes, we have a one daughter.
Produced a
She's 20
daughter.
years old already,
20
which
years old.
is
Okay.
shocking to me. I
Does
can't believe.
she work? I got four that are all in their 30s, so I hear you. Now, now she actually works for you, and we'll talk about that later on. Is that correct?
Mhm. Yes, she does.
Okay. All right. So everything's going just fine, and then what happens?
Yeah, so I'm running this mail order business, and at this point, it's getting tougher and tougher to make a profit. The sales are there. I have the customer base. I have a very good, um, you know, internal mailing list, but it's not enough. So eventually, I ended up closing the doors to this business. Right around 2017, end of 2016, early 2017. Um, and then at that time, I had also gone through surgery. I had a shoulder surgery because I tore my rotator cuff, and so I was recovering from that. And at the same time, my business is basically had to be shut down because I was basically losing money, a lot of money, and I owed a lot of creditors a lot of money. I can't remember how much it was, but it could have been close to maybe a million.
Right.
It was a lot of money,
I
and
understand those numbers. Trust me,
yeah. So
I
I
do.
basically I was bankrupt, and I was personally bankrupt as well. And during that time, we had lost through this whole time we had lost our house, our first house that we bought. It was foreclosed on.
Hmm.
We lost that, and then we moved to a rental, and we got evicted.
Hmm.
And then and that when we were in that rental, that's when I had the surgery, and then we just got evicted, and uh, basically we ended up having to go move with her parents, and then that didn't really work out so well. Um, and that with the financial stress, um, all the financial burdens that we were going through, it just put a lot of stress on the marriage, and so we divorced, and that's where that that's where that I ended up being homeless, bankrupt, evicted. I mean, it was something. And then
What years was that? Was that after 2017?
yes,
Okay,
yeah,
so
that's right around 2017, 18.
so
Yeah,
were you living in Washington State at that time?
yes, we were living here the whole time.
So so in Washington State
Hmm.
before COVID, you're
Hmm.
evicted and you're
Yes,
divorced and you got a
yes,
daughter and
yeah.
you're living in your car.
Living in my Jeep, my nice green Jeep Grand Cherokee. I
How
miss that
long?
car. It's a great car.
Tell me what that was like, and I mean, share your heart. How was what was it like to go from being a mail order business owner, married with a daughter, to living in your Jeep?
It was tough. I mean, it was an adjustment. I never thought I would find myself in that position, but um, it was definitely an eye-opening situation, and it humbled me. It humbled me a lot. Also helped me get closer to God, so that's a good thing.
Hmm.
Um,
That's the
it
first
did.
time I've heard you say that.
Yeah, very much. It really helped me get closer to God. There are some other things that happened during that over that period of time leading up to that too. I used to drink regularly. I wasn't really belligerent or anything, but it was just regular. It became more and more as the financial stress and burden got worse. I kept drinking more, and then
What were you
unfortunately,
drinking? Beer or alcohol?
oh, I mean everything, beer, liquor, you name it,
That had to
wine.
go over well with your wife.
Uh, well, not too well. We didn't fight like it didn't. It wasn't like she was telling me to stop necessarily, but it was. It just the whole thing, the whole situation, caused a lot of stress in the marriage. But so one night when I was driving, actually, I want to tell you about the story. Um, I remember I made a deal with God. I said, God, if you help me quit this thing, if I quit this drinking, I, I want you to promise me that you'll help me become a very successful individual. And so I stopped drinking on my own. And then one day, I don't know what took me, I decided to go out at night. So I went out, had a couple drinks, and then I was done. I was making my way back home. I wasn't speeding or anything. And I've been doing this for many years, decades. So this cop sees me and pulls me over. And he tells me, "Hey, did you? I noticed that you took off from the light a little bit quickly." I said, "Really? I I didn't notice that." He says, "Well," I said, "How fast was I going?" He says, "Well, I didn't really clock it, but did you have anything to drink tonight?" And I said, "Yes." And so that's when he asked me if I would be willing to do a sobriety test. And for some reason, I think I said no, but I didn't think I said no, but I said no supposedly. And so they took me to he took me in, he booked me and put me into the hospital to get my blood drawn. So then I was kept in the tank for, I think it was a long weekend. So I was there for 4 days. It was the worst experience of my life.
Hmm.
And when I was there in my cell, there was a book. And this was a book about a very talented guy. And I forgot the name of the book. I'm sorry. He was a very talented athlete, but he had a problem with alcohol and drugs. And the story is that it eventually ruined his life. And I could see in the story that basically God was trying to get him straight, but he refused until the point that it destroyed his life. Um,
Hmm.
and so I got out of there, and I decided that I would go to rehab. I told my ex-wife, I said, look, I'm gonna go to rehab. This is I can't sustain this. I can't maintain this. So I checked myself into rehab, and I've looked for a few rehab places, and I found one that just spoke to me. It was the best decision I ever made. That
Hold
changed.
that thought. Hold that thought for a moment. I want to squeeze in a question here. You're broke. You're struggling with alcohol.
Mhm,
You go to jail.
mhm,
You still have a house apparently, because you were
mhm,
on your way home.
mhm.
Then you ended up checking yourself into a rehab. Was that furnished? Was that something you had to pay for? Or was that something that was just
I had
available?
insurance pay for that.
So you had insurance.
Yeah.
How'd you have
No, but
insurance?
well, the insurance was not. It was. I had a state insurance at the time.
Okay, so were you getting food stamps and all that stuff? Was that what you're
Oh
talking
yeah.
about?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now I understand the state was helping you.
Yeah.
Citizens were helping you get yourself together
Exactly.
through the
Yeah.
state. Okay. So anyway, you're in rehab.
Yeah.
You read the book.
Yeah. So best thing I ever did. Came out of rehab. Never touched it again. Never.
Good man.
I could be around alcohol and all that. Never been an issue. But my point is, you see, I went back on my deal with God, and He came back. But He came back. It was with force, but for with love. So had that not happened to me, I don't think I would have gone into rehab and done all this. So
Okay.
it was tough love from God. Um, so that's a big part of you know changing my life really is putting down the alcohol. Um,
So were you like 20 years into alcohol or most of
oh,
your
more than that. I mean, I'd started. You can drink in Canada at 19, so I was drinking 19, 18 years old.
okay.
So it was a
So
long time.
anyway, now you come out of this whole situation.
Hmm.
You've got a different focus, a different outlook. You got some
Yeah,
brokenness going on. You
yeah,
got a daughter.
yeah,
Tell me about your daughter.
yeah. She's 20. Her name is Anae. She works for me actually right now, and she does a good job. So she's been my biggest fan, biggest supporter, really. Um, and the divorce was tough on her for sure. It was really tough on her, um, especially when I was living in my Jeep.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, when you tell me that story, I'm picturing a child coming to your Jeep to visit her dad.
mhm.
That I that's gut wrenching to me. I mean, I don't even know how you got to go through it, but she wants to see her dad.
Yes, yeah,
I think that's remarkable that you didn't lose that relationship.
yeah. I know. It was difficult for me to have my daughter see me like that. It was
Right.
tough, as a dad. But I explained it to her, um, and she tried to understand. But I know I'm jumping a little bit in the story here, but it's just because I wanted to
That's
get
okay.
that part in. But going back to when I closed up the mail order business and when we got evicted and all that, um, I ended up working at a Home Depot actually, and I learned a lot of stuff there, which actually applied to what I'm doing. So I did that for a while, and it was obviously not cutting it. I couldn't afford to get my own place on that, and I was living in my Jeep. Um, and then I heard about something called the Worker Retraining Program through WorkSource, right? And WorkSource is the unemployment agency. So I
Right.
went there and I met a lady, really nice lady. And I told her, look, I'm working at Home Depot. I used to be a business owner. It's not going well financially. And I was wondering, can you explain this worker training program? So she told me that, yeah, we do offer that. And we have certain sectors, certain jobs that we can train you for. They have to be in those fields. It's not like you can pick whatever you want, but you can pick amongst, you got to pick amongst what we offer. These are the promising jobs, the careers right now. And so she knew I was a business owner. I told her, and I told her what happened. And she goes, you might want to consider being an environmental consultant, like an industrial hygienist. And I've never heard of this before. I said, what is that exactly? And she told me, you just go out and you test materials in buildings, you test air quality and things like that, and you write reports, and that's pretty much the gist of it. I'm like, that's interesting. I'm going to be out on the road. And I said, okay. She said, look, if you're interested, we have an orientation in a few days that's going to go over that more. And then the company that trains, that provides the training for that, they're going to be here. They're going to explain it. And if you want to, we'll pay for it if you're interested. I said, okay. So I got involved in that. I did really well. I went in class. It was it was under a year. You just got a bunch of certifications, the required ones. And then the same company hired me.
Now, was this during COVID?
This is before COVID,
Before
right?
COVID, okay.
Yeah, right before COVID. And then they hired me, and I worked for them for a little while. And, it was going well. Clients loved me. They kept getting, calls. Clients, oh, Pascal is, great technician, so on and so forth. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing pretty good here. Things are turning around. I'm gonna, save my money. And they didn't know I still lived in my Jeep at the time. They had no idea.
How are you? How are you taking care of yourself? I mean, your
Great question.
hygiene, your clothes.
Great question. You couldn't tell. I was still in shape and everything. So I had a gym membership. And so I had a LA Fitness gym membership. So I take my shower in the morning. It opened at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I could take my shower and everything, groom myself. I had my shaving, everything done. I got a workout in, and then I started my day. So it was perfect. And for clothes, to change my clothes, I rented a small storage, a 10 by 5, a 5 by 10, and small little storage. And I kept a small rack with my clothes hanging on there. And then I had my shoes and all these other things. And so if I needed to change, I would just go there, change, just get in there. There's a light switch. You can close the door, turn the light. I put my stuff there. I changed clothes, and off I went. I went
How,
with my
how,
day.
how long
So
did you
that's,
live that way? Do you remember how long you?
yeah, it's about a year.
A whole year.
Yeah,
The,
yeah.
the character that you're describing is pretty amazing. I mean, you didn't give up. You didn't drink yourself on a street corner until there was nothing left. You
No, I
kept
had to
fighting.
do it. I kept going. I had to. Um,
Okay.
so that's how I did it. I had a storage, and then if I needed to, if I was bored, I'd go to the gym. Um, I would have my laptop with me. I parked it at the Safeway because the back of the Safeway had free Wi-Fi, so I could watch programs there, work, and do my thing. So after work, that's basically, I try to find things to do. And yeah, I remember that spot. And then I'd have to find places. I couldn't stay at the Safeway the whole time, so I would drive to certain areas where I could park my vehicle and sleep safely. So um, that
It had
was,
to be tough. I mean,
yeah.
vehicle maintenance, gasoline,
Hmm.
getting paid every couple of weeks, a little bit of
Yeah,
money
yeah,
to kind of survive on. You're bankrupt.
yep.
Uh, okay,
I actually
so
went down because I was so broke, Jeff, that the money was little, and I needed to save it because I had other things I'd take care of. I had to go down to one meal a day. So
mm,
I ate. I mean, I looked at it. I couldn't afford to just buy 3 meals. It's too expensive. I
right.
mean, it was like almost $100 a day. If you're gonna eat properly, it's just too much. So I'm like, I can't do this. I can't. And I figured out I can only afford to eat one time a day. And so I planned on what I was going to eat that one time a day, and it had to be under that. I think it was just under $20. $17 was my max. So I was able to figure out what to eat for $17 a day, under $20. It had to be under $20. And so that's what I did. And so I just kept going, and this is what I do now. I still eat once a day.
Really? Now tell me about as you're going through all of this. Your family's in Toronto.
Hmm.
Did they know about all this? Your
Never,
parents?
I would never
Nobody
let
knew.
my mom know that. And
Okay, so
I didn't want him to know that. You know, here you are all the way over there, and you're struggling. No, I didn't want my mom to know that. I talked to her like it was normal. She had no idea.
mm,
My parents had
yeah.
no idea. Talked to my mom, dad, brother, sister. Nobody had a clue. I mean,
Okay, so we've got about a little less than a half an hour left in the show. Um, so you kind of recovered from the homeless situation.
hmm.
You started up your company, which we're going to talk about, and you've been doing this for about 5 years now. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Before we jump into that, is there anything else you want to recap as we get ready to switch gears about uh, into 5 Microns Inc.?
Yeah. I mean, basically, when I got let go at that job, it was a Christmas, right
You
around
got let
Christmas.
go.
Yeah. And then
They let
my
you
daughter,
go?
yeah, they called me into the office. I was surprised. And he goes, "Today's your last day. Turn in your keys." The manager said, "I'm like, what? What keys?" Anyway, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm sorry, but we have to let you go. We don't really have anything else for you to do and stuff." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? There's plenty of work I saw." And then they're like, "No, that's it." And and then one thing he told me I never forgot. He said, "But by the way, I don't think you'll ever really cut it in this business. You'll never make it. There's no way. You shouldn't. You should. You shouldn't consider doing this." He told me
That,
this.
that's been
And
said to me before as well.
yeah, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna. We'll see about that. So I was let go. Um, it was a bad time. I was gonna get an apartment. I was gonna have my daughter spend Christmas with me. So now I
Mm,
had to tell her that wasn't gonna happen because I lost
mm.
my job. She was very sad. She was really, really upset about this, but it was tough. But she did come see me anyway. Christmas, I was at the Jeep. I mean, the best thing we could do. We ate together, and then I decided that I was going to start the business. That's when I took my last paycheck and the money I saved for the apartment. I bought everything. Now I didn't have any money left for marketing, but I did have a library card, and I used that to get a list from the library. They have a subscription to Info USA. I downloaded the whole thing, and it was like 4,000 companies in Washington State that I could target. So with that information, I got my computer laptop. I bought a little dinner tray. I pushed the passenger seat up so I could put it there, put my laptop at the Safeway with a free Wi-Fi. I just went to work. Month after month, I cold called all this people, all this whole list, and nothing was happening for a while. Until maybe 6 or 7 months later, somebody called me and they asked if I was willing to come out and offer my services. And I was ready to go that day. They're like, no, 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 no. It's going to be in a few days, or we can schedule it and you can come and do this. So that was the first time. And then those calls started happening. They just started to snowball and snowball. Uh, and then COVID hit. Everything comes to stop again. So here I am. You know, I'm like, wow, this is happening. I finally was able to stay in a hotel at least 1 or 2 days a week. Well, I had to stop that. But luckily, the governor said that our type of business was essential. So we were back on. And so I continued going at that point. And then it just kept going and growing and growing. Pretty soon I was staying in a hotel, not just a couple nights, a whole week, a whole month. And then I was able to get in my own apartment. And the business has been growing very rapidly. I work a lot, maybe 14, 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, actually. And I'm looking to grow it some more. So that's where we at. It's been an amazing journey so far.
What an interesting story, and I love the tenacity that you had to not give up. I can just imagine I can imagine some of the emotional ups, up and downs, because we've all come through something. But I can just imagine some of the ups and downs and the discouraging things and all those things that you went through. But your determination to not live in your Jeep, to restore the relationship however you could with your daughter, and to continue that entrepreneurial spirit, also along with God, uh, brought you to the other side of all of this. For the sake of the people that are going to watch this, is it okay if I go ahead and show the video of your company?
Yes, please.
Okay, so folks, this is 5 Microns Inc. We're talking to the founder, Pascal Jean Baptiste. You've heard his story. Now let's take a look at what he does for a living. Carol, are you there? Sometimes we have to switch a couple of screens in order for him to bring that video on.
Mold, asbestos, radon. If you own residential or commercial property, you know that inspecting and monitoring your property is critical. We're 5 Microns Inc., a Seattle-based environmental consulting company providing asbestos, mold, radon, drinking water, lead, and air quality testing and inspection services. Gain peace of mind. Call us or visit 5microns.tech to get a free estimate and book your appointment. That's 5microns.tech.
Very cool. Now, how when did you start? When did you start this company?
I started this company around November of 2019.
And so you've seen a consistent growth through COVID
Oh,
to where
yes.
you now have an office. You're
Yep.
you're paying for an office. You live in Bellevue.
Hmm.
Your daughter works for you.
Yes.
That's quite a story, my friend.
Yep.
Tell me about 5 Microns. What do you do?
Well, we're an environmental consulting company. And so basically, that makes us industrial hygienists. We do inspections and testing for mold, indoor air quality, drinking water, asbestos, lead. Um, we also do testing for methamphetamine, fentanyl, which is big right now because it's a big problem in our state. We provide services like that. Uh, some of our clients are going to be water restoration companies, mold remediation companies, because they do a lot of post mitigation testing. So they need to, have proof that what they did has actually worked. And so that's some of our big clients: property management companies, real estate brokers, as well as homeowners and renters.
So, because I've been in the plumbing world for 34 years, anytime we run into asbestos, all the brakes go on, and we have to bring in somebody. The people who've hired us, they have to clean that environment up before we can work on it. And that includes, if we go into a crawl space and there's heavy radon gas, we run into asbestos, mold. I have a picture where I climbed in between two walls in order to make a repair on a property in Tacoma, and the walls are black.
Oh.
They're black,
Mhm.
and it's not paint, it's
Mm.
mold.
Wow.
And so I'm in this environment. I know a little bit about mold. I know that it can be really bad if you have an illness or whatnot. But as long as you got out of there and could breathe, and I don't have any asthma or related issues, it didn't bother me at all. I've been in those kind of environments where, in the plumbing world, like a crawl space that has a gas under it, we don't go in there. There's things that we have to make sure, according to OSHA, because you can die. So you go in, and companies call you, you go in and test. Give me a typical call.
Typical call would be, let's say it's we're working with a water restoration company. A basement flooded. They came out, they dried it out, and of course, when you have standing water like that, mold grows. Right, it takes
Mhm.
24 hours, 24 to 48 hours. You have mold growth, and it becomes airborne. and that mold can be toxigenic, allergenic, or pathogenic. So it's in the air. And so after they dry it out, you then want to make sure that levels are acceptable. And so we come in. It's like, we're done with our remediation. We want you to come in and give us a clearance test. And so I go in, and we set up air sampling devices. And we take air samples. We do an inspection as well. And then we take everything, get it back to the lab for analysis, and then we write a report once the lab analysis are ready. The report will show what the status is of the mold spores, if it's acceptable, if we noticed anything else that needs attention, and what they need to do about it, what our recommendations are. So that's an example of a call that we would get from a water restoration company after they've done their work.
So what about your lab work? Where do you take it?
So we farm it out right now, which most people in our industry farm it out to a very big outfit, a big lab that does this for companies like ours. So they do all the lab work, and then we get the results, and then we put it together in a report.
Now, is this something that because I've had water tested, I've had well water tested. What's the turnaround on when you send it out to the lab?
So for water, it depends on what it is. Metals are going to be
Right.
about 7 to 10 business days, but other things can take just 5 days. 3 to 5
Just
days.
5 days. So
Mold
'cause
reports, 5 to 7 business days for mold report that's tested.
Okay, and so I mean, how many calls a day do you get, if you don't mind me asking?
We get a lot. Yeah.
Really?
So we do about 3 appointments a day, 3 to 4 a day right now, which is actually a lot, because you have to remember you're in traffic too in between that. And then the time that it takes to do the inspection is about 1 to 2 hours.
And what is your area? What is your territory?
We go to the whole state.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. The whole
So
state.
you've gone to Spokane and done all this stuff over there?
I mean, it has to be worth it.
Well, I mean, the customer's going to pay for it. I understand that.
Yeah. So
But you do cover the whole state.
The whole state.
And how many organizations such as yours are out there? You used to work for one.
There's a few. There's a few of us. The more active ones are, I would say there's probably 4 to 5 of us more active, including 5 microns. So yeah, we do a pretty good share of the work in Washington State for that.
So, I mean, you've been 5 years of running. Tell me how your life has changed.
Oh, I mean, it's amazing. I gotta say, sometimes I have to pinch myself, because I just remember I was in the trunk of a Jeep, sleeping and working, to actually living in one of the top zip codes in the country. I'm in a Class A building, running my business here. I've got a lot of work. I'm actually bringing on more people. I just interviewed somebody that I hope they work out, but that I'm going to bring on. I mean, I'm just enjoying life. I mean, I'm able to save. I'm out of debt, no debt, and I'm staying out of debt. The company has no debt. All the vehicles are paid for. I can't believe it. I mean, it's like, how do you go from being bankrupt to this? There's money in the bank. It's just unbelievable. I just, God is great. That's all I can say. It's just, he can shock you. If you trust him, he can shock you. He can give you more than you expect. And I don't want to sound preachy, but I have to say the truth.
I mean, you're talking to someone who's survived cancer, aneurysm, had 2 companies. I'm kind of on cruise control, helping other people now. So I understand. I mean, I could have been dead 3 different times. We have a similar story in that I remember a time when I was, using, and my life was a mess. It was a complete mess. And one night I just got on my hands and knees and I said, Lord God, if you are who you are, you gotta You got to take this ugly stuff out of my life. And the next day, it was all gone, all of it, the cravings, everything. I haven't touched any of that stuff or that lifestyle ever since. And so, you have people that are good with wood. You have people that are good with, doing tech stuff. For me, it's people. I think people are the most amazing thing in all of the world. And so my niche is being a part of people. It's kind of why the genesis of this whole program. So when you approached me and started sharing your story with me last week at Ignite You, and that you wanted to share your story, I, there were so many things that were happening within me that I identified with. Fortunately, my wife and I made it through those tough times. We've been together for 34 years. We've raised 4 kids, but it wasn't easy. And the hardest thing about it for me was losing reputation. You know, I remember, you can only burn so many bridges until there's none left. So I had to rebuild reputation. And I thought, man, if your word doesn't mean anything, then virtually everything you do is negated because you're not trustworthy. And so I wanted to be a better person to myself. I had an uncle, and you talked about your uncles. I'm going to have you bring that up here in a minute. But I had an uncle tell me that there's not one problem that you have that's bigger than the lives and needs of your kids. And I'll never forget that. His name was Uncle Walter. And he wasn't a very good father. But he told me that, and I think maybe he understood that later on in life, having failed at his own marriage and his own issues with his childhood or his kids. But you mentioned that you had some great examples in your family with your uncles. We've got about 13 minutes left. Would you share a little bit about that, Pascal?
Yeah, I mean, I have some uncles in my father's family. As far as entrepreneurship is concerned, all his brothers, they're all, including him, all of them are entrepreneurs. So I think it runs in our blood, this entrepreneurship thing. And these guys, they provided some help as far as examples, in terms of how to have a business and stuff like that.
What
They're
about your
very
dad?
loving. I'm sorry.
What about your dad?
Yeah, my dad and I, we don't talk a lot, but he's living his life. But yeah, we don't talk a lot. I think I'm a little bit closer to some of my uncles than my father, actually.
Now, are they his brothers or your mother's
His
brothers?
His brothers.
They're his brothers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm also close with my mom's brother, my uncle from my mom's side.
Yeah. And your relationship with your daughter?
Oh, it's fantastic. I'm thankful for that. In fact, she's if she's interested in being in a relationship with somebody, she has me vet them. She came to me with that idea. I didn't even ask her. I didn't say you need to come and show me these people. No, before she actually decides to be in a relationship, she brings them to me. In fact, that happened yesterday. So she brought this young man, and to talk to me, and I spoke to him for about half an hour or maybe a little longer, and then she asked me, "So, Dad, what should I do here? What do you think?" And I'm so I'm so thankful that my daughter thinks of me that way, that she can bring this to me, because it's not common.
Amazing.
So her and I are close. I started talking to her since she was about 8 years old. I'm honest with her. I level with her, and I think that's what helps. I'm just honest with her. I don't make a lot of parents will try to say, don't do this, don't do that, or scare them. Don't date ever until you're 30. That's not realistic. So you just have to be honest and say, hey, look, this is what you're doing if you get involved in dating. And I remember when she was 11, this boy asked her out, and she told me about that. She said, what should I do? I said, look, this is what happens. When you decide to date, if you start early, the most likely what's going to happen is you're going to start having a family early. She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you see, me, you, your mom, family, right? That's what I mean. If you start dating early, the likelihood of you having children early is also possible. The problem is that it's going to put you in a very precarious situation. You're going to basically have children and start life in poverty. That's just what it is. Because you don't have enough skills yet or anything to exchange with the world, you and that young person, other young man in the world, to be able to make a living and support yourselves. So you're going to
Good
start at a
advice.
deficit. And so we had conversations like that early on, and so we've always been communicating that way. And so,
Sounds like she's got a pretty smart father. That's what I'm hearing.
well, thank you. I don't know. I mean, I've done my share of foolish things.
Well, we
Um,
all have, but your recovery is remarkable. Now, you we met at Ignite U. Talk to me about Ignite U. How did you end up there?
yeah, I was a member of BNI, and
Hmm.
then there was a member of my BNI group that went to Ignite U, and she kept telling me, "Listen, you really got to try this Ignite U network group. It's really fun. Do we meet a few times a week in Tacoma? You should really check it out." And I hesitated a few times until finally I said, "You know what? I'm just gonna go." But the funny thing is, when I started going, she left the company she was with. I'm like, "Oh, great! I mean, come and join this thing, and you're not even there anymore." So anyway, I got in, and I've been there for over a year and a half now, almost two
For a
years.
year and a half.
Yeah,
Uh, how,
but
how, well, go ahead.
I wasn't able to come consistently, and then I sort of reorganized my things about 8 months ago and started going at least once a week. So
Has it been has it been a help to you?
it has. It definitely has.
How
Um,
so?
well, I have two, at least I can count two key clients there that I work with on a regular basis, and you know I'm getting connected with more clients through Ignite You. I think it's great.
The thing about Ignite You, and when I went back and told the company, because I'm not the owner of the company, I have to, everything has to all the money has to come through their hands. But when I had my company down in the Portland area, I didn't have this kind of concept of networking groups. It wasn't a part of what I was learning. I did go to a BNI group a couple of different times, and even back then, I thought it was pretty restrictive and just difficult. So I didn't get involved. However, and I mean what I'm about to say emphatically, when I went to uh, Ignite You, I was blown away. I mean, I was so blown away by the fact that all of these people here, business owners, salespeople, they're all networking together to try to make a difference for everybody in the room. And I thought, this is different. And of course, I like the owner who started all this, Kieran and his wife. And I'm just kind of amazed that all these business owners are meeting 3 times a week, and there's so many opportunities to either do something, get involved in something, or even use some of the services. So I think it's really, really great. Now I've gotten a couple of referrals for plumbing, but for me, the ideal of networking and getting to know different people in our community, uh, and also these are some pretty fantastic people that we're meeting, yourself included. So for me, it's been at my age, I'm 65 years old next month. It's been something that I didn't know a whole lot about, and I wish I had known about it, these
Mhm.
kinds of things. However, I will say this. I wasn't real thrilled with the BNI stuff. Uh, so I'm thankful that I did go to the Ignite U. Uh, it's a lot. There's a lot more flexibility. So, and I got the opportunity to meet you. I mean, you're doing my podcast. This is show number 13 for the audience. Anybody listening to the recording or whatnot. This is show number 13, and so this is kind of the direction that I wanted Let's Talk About It to go. It is to talk about you, what you're doing, and how it's impacting the lives of other people. That's really the heart of this program. I pay for all of this out of pocket. There's nobody helping me do this. But again, you got a chance to meet Pascal, and you might need his services. And of course, all of his information. Your website is 5micronsinc.tech or 5microns.tech.
5microns.tech. That's the number 5 microns, like the unit of measurement, dot T as in Tom, ECH.
All right. And I got to tell you, folks, we in the plumbing world, we use a lot of these services. I didn't know about Pascal's, but I'm certainly going to introduce him to our company. If you have an issue, please give him a call. I think, I mean, you've heard his story. I'll give you that. We got just about 4 minutes. Let me give you the last word, whatever you want to share.
Well, I just want to tell anybody, if they're going through any kind of struggle, addiction, financial problems, health, whatever it is, just have some faith. Put your faith in God. I know some people may be skeptical, but it doesn't hurt to try. I mean, you have nothing to lose, because you can turn it around. Through God, you can turn your life around. Doesn't matter what age you are. I was nearly in my 50s when I, went bankrupt and was basically, I was homeless, living in my car, and it turned around very quickly. So if I can do that, you can too. Through God, you can do it. It can happen. It really can, and it will. That I promise you.
So what do you think of this young man your daughter introduced you to?
I think he's not ready yet. He's not ready.
Did you tell her that?
Yeah, I did tell her that. I said, she called me this morning and asked me, I said, you're a responsibility that he's not quite ready for yet.
Yeah, how'd she take that news?
She said, okay, fair enough. And because I gave the basis for my conclusion, and she agreed. She said, I think you're right. He's not ready for this. I mean, yes, I understand. He sees a beautiful young woman. He wants to, maybe marry her, but it's just not that simple. You got to have your life on solid footing first before you jump in there. God knows that there's already enough, even if he had that settled, you got to be ready.
Well, I have a heart for women, and I always tell them, whatever you do, do not get hooked up with somebody's kid, because you're going to end up raising him, and you don't want to do that. That's not what men do. So,
exactly.
Listen, Pascal, I really appreciate you coming on to Let's Talk About It. It was a very interesting story. I love everything that you've bounced back from. I am a God person. I'm not a religious person. I absolutely believe in the God of the creation universe, and I trust him with everything. But I wanted my show to be a little bit more about people. And now you come on my show and tell me about the God that helped you. We serve the same God, and I really appreciate it. I didn't know any of this until you brought it up on the show today. So that's been wonderful.
I don't think it would have been possible without God. So there's no way stuff like that happens without God.
I'm a living miracle on 3 different levels.
Yes, you are.
I completely understand what you just said.
Yes.
Maybe we can do this again sometime, but I wish you the best. Keep the faith, and I'd love to hear and see your business grow. And I just wish nothing but prosperity for you and a good future. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on and being a part of this fledgling little podcast that I decided to start doing. Just literally 13 episodes again. So thank you, my friend. And to the audience, whoever catches this show, thank you for checking in. The recording's going to be on my website, which is freefromfear.us. You can also pick the show up on Rumble. It'll be on the YouTube page, and it's always going to be on Facebook unless they throw me off. They throw me off all the time. But that's it, folks. We're all done. Thanks, Pascal. Thank you, Carol. Carol's behind the scenes. That's the end of our broadcast today. Stay tuned.